He's an incredible person, and I never thought it was possible. I had genuinely become so prejudiced. So his first premise is always something like, there are immigrants, and that's the evidence bit. Thank you. That's absolutely the next thing I'm doing.
There it is. I'm very glad to hear it.
Now this amazing LBC caller. It's called Isaac. Not only has he a fantastic take on misinformation, and particularly right-wing misinformation, and not only that, he also tells a fantastic story about his own personal journey away from his own prejudices.
I think that I'm a pretty decent cross-section of a lot of the topics you spoke about this week, James. I'm around about 20. I've got psychosis, and it's a struggle.
Right.
I've managed to pull through, and now I'm studying law, and I found out I'm quite good at it. But it took a lot of unlearning things, because I realised when I was about 17, when I went off to college, that I'd been radicalised by the content I was watching on YouTube when I started getting into politics.
Right.
As I studied politics in college as well. And I think what's left out of this, and what was sort of slightly mentioned in a previous call-in, is that there's definitely an element of mental illness and suffering in this that isn't talked about quite as much.
I think Lisa alluded to it, and it's going to apply in some cases, but no one's suggesting it's going to be relevant to all.
Yeah, it's not relevant to all, absolutely not. But
it's relevant to you.
And there's been quite a few people I've known in my life who have had similar stories, not always the same, never exactly the same, but there's elements that are shared in all of them.
So what was it you believed that you had to, as it were, unbelieve when you arrived at college? What was the process of radicalisation that you'd endured?
Well, obviously, for all British people, it's all about immigrants, isn't it? It's all about.
I don't know, because it could be about vaccines. It's about monkeypox today. I presumed it was, but I just wanted to clarify, to confirm.
Yeah, you're right. No, it was mostly about immigration. Was the radicalising factor, but then it spread to everything. It spread to absolutely everything. Scepticism on absolutely everything.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think one leads into the others?
There's a pipeline, James.
Right.
You start off just looking for funny videos that are a little bit edgy, and it's not you thinking you want these things.
Yeah.
But the YouTube algorithm it's perfected to know how to manipulate you into carrying on down a specific line of thought, because that's what makes the most money.
Yes. Okay.
Is keeping you further and further down a hole, making sure that you're continually consuming this kind of content, no matter how bad it gets. That's irrelevant for them.
How bad did it get?
It did get quite bad. To the point where it was, similar to what was said earlier. Yeah, there's a belief that immigrants were coming over and raping people en masse, and that just simply isn't true. But
the tidal wave of content telling you that it is true is something that most people won't know about, and if they did know about, might fall for. I mean, that's the real mad tension here, isn't it? In that you listen, let me show you how this works, but then that runs the risk of signing up new recruits, as it were.
Exactly. There's two elements, though, that I think really forced me into that. So I think a lot of people would look at that and turn away.
But the business model is the people who don't turn away. The business model is the people who want more. So how did you break it? How did you break this cycle?
Well, I was forced to. Absolutely forced to, because I had to go out into the real world. I had medical leave in school. Right. I was isolated, and then COVID hit.
Right.
So I had, I think, 3 years where I just didn't see anyone.
Good Lord.
And then I went to college, and it was a complete culture shock. I became friends with a Muslim boy.
Right.
And he's an incredible person. I never thought it was possible. I had genuinely become so prejudiced that I didn't believe that was possible. And it amazed me because he was so completely blasé about everything. I thought, no, there's no way. I've been told that they're all Islamic extremists. There's no way that this is real. And through my studies, I realised that, the arguments these people have been making have been wrong from a point of construction, not just from what they're saying, but that the things they're using to evidence their claims cannot correctly be used that way in a properly formed argument. But people like me who have psychosis often have trouble with logical thinking.
Okay.
So these people pose themselves as intellectuals and they say, here's the evidence. And you're not questioning it because you're having a hard time understanding the evidence and how that relates to what they're actually saying.
Yeah.
You have a hard time understanding it. So you're just taking their words for it because they've got a posh English accent and they say the right things and they say them in the right way, so they must be right?
Yeah.
And you don't realise until you decide to really educate yourself, you decide to really push yourself, that these arguments simply don't work. They cannot be constructed in that way, such as Nigel Farage. Oftentimes, Nigel Farage will...
He's just asking questions, though, isn't he? You see?
Yeah, obviously. But all of his statements that are definitely questions and never statements, never.
Yeah.
Always start with premise, point, right?
Yeah.
So his first premise is always something like, there are immigrants. And that's the evidence to it. He'll evidence that there are immigrants.
So everything that follows must be true because there definitely are immigrants.
Exactly. And a lot of people like me had a really hard time not understanding that.
Well, you've helped me understand it a little better. We're kind of pretty much out of time. Did it happen very quickly then when you got to college and you just started mixing with people from different... Because a lot of people we've spoken to and about today, of course, are not under a sort of form of house arrest. They're not living in complete isolation. And we've got the dad in his 4x4 office, almost living online, but we've got the brother whose mates agree with him. We've got people who are living full existences out and about and presumably looking at people with these secret thoughts inside. So, I know you're not claiming that you're representative of any broader truths, but when it happened, did it happen very quickly?
The most radical things absolutely fell away very quickly.
Right.
There were a lot of underlying things that definitely stuck around a lot longer than they should have done.
Okay.
And I'd just like to say, before I go, for a full 2 days, I have run out of my tablets. So, anybody who's listening who needs to take their tablets, do it, because, at least in my experience, with things like this, you end up being a lot deeper in the hole than you realise.
That's an interesting... and again, I know that you're speaking from difficult personal experience. I wasn't quite sure where you were going at the end there, and I hope you get your medication sorted ASAP, Isaac. Thank you.
Thank you. That's absolutely the next thing I'm doing.
There it is. I'm very glad to hear it. Thank you, mate.
Now, wasn't he amazing? Especially when he talked about his own personal journey and how he realised that his previous worldviews were completely wrong. But when he spoke about how Farage operates on the immigration part being true and everything else, so to speak, must be true, I found was very, very interesting, and I think he just very much could be onto something there. But what do you guys think? Let me know down below. And also, this call was on the very same day that the brilliant Lisa was on as well, and if you want to watch that video and listen to Lisa, you're very much welcome. I'll leave it up here. And it just leaves me to say, I shall bid you farewell and take care, my friends.